And I'm hoping you all have a screen in front of you that says eBird. We got,
I do.
okay, yeah, that's right. Everybody's muted, so I can't ask that. So here we are. When you go onto the website, it's Cornell Lab of Ornithology. They started this program, I think, 2002, I believe. And they now have like 100 million bird sightings. It's an incredible resource. But you'll see from this, and I'll walk through some of this, up at the top, there's a menu, Submit, Explore, My eBird, Science. There's a lot of information also down below. So when you get on that site, you can scroll down, you'll see the eBirder of the month, you'll see checklist challenges, species leaders, checklist leaders, and other resources. So that's all from the main web page. What I'd like to do is show you a couple of these areas. Science is one of them. It's a nifty area where scientists, educators, conservationists, a lot of folks grab a lot of good information. And just as an example, they have a new feature called eBird Status and Trends, where you can go in and enter a species. And I'm going to enter the, where am I going here? An old friend of Venice right now, the black-chinned hummingbird. And I'm assuming some of you have seen that guy down in Venice on the island. They have gathered all the data on that bird, and they can show you week by week. You see this over on the right side, week by week, in abundance, from not too abundant to a lot of birds out there. And here is, from the first week of January, the black-chinned hummingbird. You see how it's moving north and moving west, and then it moves back down to the south. I'll play it again. You don't see it over there in Florida, do you? So you know it's a rare bird for us. But it's kind of fascinating to see how they put all this data together to show the migration paths. And it's based on all those checklists that everybody has added in. That's just one little feature. I'll try to show you one more of these. Another one that's been seen around our area, the lark sparrow. We'll take you on a little journey from the first week of January on a lark sparrow. You see how it goes straight up through the west? Not a whole lot over there in Florida. Again, it's a rarity. So when it shows up on the SRQ bird alerts as a rarity, and once it's had pictures taken or documentation, it's been confirmed as a bird, then everyone wants to go run around and see it. But that's just one of the many things that are on the in the science area on this website. Just the other day, I saw a notification of Sarasota Audubon having a presentation, I think on the 27th, with advanced registration required, and they're going to have a person at their meeting, January 27th, 7 o'clock. Again, you have to go on their website and register, but they're having somebody from Cornell talk all about the birds and the data that they get and how they work with biologists, ecologists, statisticians, computer scientists on all of this stuff. So if you want to know more on that science area, it'd be well for you to get on and watch that. I've signed up for it as well. So that's a little on science. Now let's go to explore. Another area where on the website you see you can explore species, you can explore regions. And as with every one of these places, there are all sorts of other information available, including down in this corner here, a reference to eBird Essentials, Learning Birding Skills. And that is a course that I'd highly recommend. You can go on the Cornell site, it's free. It takes you through a paced course, and you can get a certificate at the end of it, and that'll teach you a lot of things. It'll teach you some things in addition to what we covered today. But that's all in this explore area. Now, I think we got to do a little exploration. I want to do first, let's see, we'll go to species. And I'll put in a species here. Swallow-tailed kite. We're going to have a presentation on that. I think Jack Ford's on the call. He might be able to mention this at the end of our presentation, because I think the general meeting is going to have a presentation on swallow-tailed kites. So you go in and you're exploring a species, and you see there's photography, there's some other identification. You can click on to hear about it. You can also see more statistics. And if you go and click on that large map area.
I've tried the passcode, I've got the meeting ID, and it just won't let me in.
I think somebody's having a problem there. So maybe Rick, we're hearing it a little bit here. But we're going to go in and actually enter, well, you can see sightings all over, but what we're going to do is check with Carlton Memorial Reserve, which is one of the locations they've documented swallowtail kites on everybody's list. So here we are at Carlton, and when you go in, you get the map and you're able to see locations where things have been sighted. And along the right-hand side, there's a key to show you if there had been any recent sightings, they would have been in red. There haven't been because they're not here right now. But older sightings, 30 days plus, you'll see them in blue. And if it's a personal site that somebody's documented, it'll be the small blue. If it's a birding hotspot, it's got a little flame in it. And so you can go in and you can see checklists of people who have seen the swallow-tailed kite. You can see that even going down with everybody, these are all different bird lists. And we'll pick on Mike because he's on the call, and see that on June 2nd, 2020, he was at Carlton Reserve and he saw these species. There's a way when you do your list, you can also add media, that is add photos, or you can add audio. So here are some of the birds that Mike saw, and there's the swallowtail kite. And it has his credit on it, and it also says Macaulay Library, because in addition to eBird, there are a couple other resources out there that are fantastic, and one of them is that Macaulay Library. So anything, pictures you take end up being part of that. And there are certain bird pictures that end up getting featured because they're pretty special ones. So that's showing you the swallowtail kite. And I'm going to go back here. We're going to explore again. So that's just one bird. And you can, I'll put one more in just to give you an example, because this is a bird that we've been out trying to find, the Bachman sparrow, which was named by one of Audubon's buddies, who was a minister, I think, who had sighted it in South Carolina. So that tells you all about that bird. And we're going to go in again to the map. Okay, I got to get back to the map again. Larger map. And somewhere, where is that? There's a place where you can put in the, you can put in the exact location. I wanted to get that exact location again. Let's see. I'm gonna not bother with that because I'm having a little difficulty finding the species by location, because it's got to go much bigger. That shows the locations of the Bachman sparrow. What I wanted to show you is if I could have found that that other place to put in the exact location, Carlton, you could go on there and see different time periods. You could go in and see December through February to see when birds were observed. And you would see for the Bachman sparrow, almost nobody seeing that bird at that time. But then you could see other times when many people had seen it. So if you're, for any species, you can explore all those different things. And so if you're looking up for a particular bird, and you know I'm going to go out to Carlton, you know you're not going to have a whole lot of luck like we didn't a few weeks ago when we were looking for a couple of those birds, because they just aren't there at that time. So that takes you through some of the exploration. Exploring species is one way of doing it. Exploring regions is another. And in this case, let's go to Sarasota, Florida. And so you can see Sarasota County and species observed within the county, checklists, the eBirders, all the different hotspots. So just within that area, you can get all kinds of information to help you. You go to hotspots and you see right off the bat a couple of the top birding places in the county. And look at that, Myakka River State Park with 256 and Celery Fields right behind it. From there, this takes a little while, as I found out. Sometimes it takes a little while to crank out the information, but there you go. So you can go in to Myakka State Park and look at sightings. You can see the birds that were most recently seen, birds, the first sighting of that within the county, can see all sorts of details. Completed checklists, 2,935 checklists in all. And I'll let the computer crunch that a little bit. So if you're thinking about going to Myakka River State Park and you want to know what's been seen there lately, well, look at Sharon Wilcox, 77 species on January 20th. And you can actually go in and see all the species and her documentation with photos. So before you're going somewhere, it's very helpful to be able to just go in and see, well, what's been seen there lately. Um, Now it's going to take its time to get back. There we go. So you can, and then if you're really curious, you can start looking down and see which ones of your friends have been there recently and what did they see. I'd pick on Michael again, but I'm not sure he's, unless I missed him. He maybe he'll chime in on that later on, but you can see all the people who have been there, also shows some of the birds, gives credit to them. So you see whose photos have been taken lately. And then it also lists top birders. That's the people who have been seeing the most species, and you can also see the people who have been doing the most checklists. So there's some articles that have been written about how eBirding gets crazy because you start these competitions, and I've never been one for doing all of that. But it is fair to say some people kind of compete to see who's on there, what have they seen, and then you say to yourself, gee, why didn't I see that bird first? But that's all within that whole area of explore. So a lot to see there. I'm going to also show you one more example of the power of this. I had an email from my sister who lives in Boulder, Colorado. She said, Bob, I heard a sound that I don't think I hear out here. It sounded like a cardinal. Could there actually be a cardinal out here? Because I thought they were pretty rare. And so I said, well, let me check it out and I'll call you back. So I went in and I looked for the northern cardinal. And now let's see if I can get to this map correctly. Trying to get a larger map out of here. You can see there that there are not a whole lot of cardinals over in Colorado. They are seen at some time. But I went in and I checked on the cardinals and I looked for the location for cardinals. Boulder, Colorado, where I knew my sister was. Then I looked to see what's in her area. And there was this Centennial Middle School area, and somebody, this is back in March, somebody had seen a cardinal. And not only had that person seen the cardinal, where is that? There. That person had recorded the cardinal. So again, not only can you put a photo in with your checklist, you can do a recording of the sound. So here I had seen that there was this one sighting of a cardinal. I had the audio, so I called my sister back and I said, Kit, where were you walking around to see that bird? And she said, I was at this, I said, was it anywhere near Centennial Middle School? And she said, well, yeah, that's exactly where I was walking. So then I played the sound for her. I said, did it sound kind of like this? And she said, yeah, it sounded kind of like that. So I said, well, not only is that a cardinal, but that is probably the cardinal that you heard. that has been recorded here. So that just shows you the power of this whole program. You can pinpoint some things to that kind of detail on occasion. So that was one that floored her, and she's since seen it. We keep wondering whether there's going to be a female cardinal around at some time. Now I'm going to go from this and see if I can now get onto my presentation. My only trouble is that I'm need to get to the presentation that's right there. I got to get out of my, there, okay. We are going to go to slide presentation from the beginning. Okay, so we're going to switch from the website to the mobile application. And that is a application that you can get on your phone. It's a free application, eBird. Go in there, have it put on your phone, and then that's a program that helps you when you're on the move, and you can enter your bird list as you're going along. You can get other information on there as well. So we're going to go through that now. I have a menu that keeps getting in my way here, and I don't know how to get rid of it.
Bob, I have a question.
Yeah.
Is Merlin the same as Cornell Lab, eBird?
It's part of that whole thing, and I'm glad you mentioned it because in addition to Macaulay Library, Merlin is the other powerful tool because that's a tool you can do to go in and on your mobile application too. You can look at birds, understand and get pictures of them, listen to the birds, and it's all tied in together. So yes, it's another resource. It's another application you have to download on your phone. It's also one that does things by region, so you can't, for instance, I have loaded in there Eastern birds, but I also have one for Western because I go out to Colorado sometimes. So there's some different birds out there. So when you be mindful when you use Merlin that you need to add some new lists. I think that's the way it works. I think the Audubon one's the same way, but yeah, that's Merlin. This is what you'll see when you get on your computer. I mean, on your phone, you'll be able to go in and click on the application, and it gives you the date, gives you the time. If you want to adjust that time, you can go positive or negative. Maybe you haven't started yet. You turn your phone on, but you haven't started your walk yet. So you can make adjustments there. Down here, record track. You can actually, if you got tied in the GPS, you can actually track where you're walking. So if you go through Carlton and it shows you the 3.5 miles you track to look for that Bachman sparrow. And when you see down below, there's some other features to this application. Checklists, you could check on there and you'd see some of your recent checklists. Explore, that gives you more information you can look into. But the first thing, chances are you're going to get on there and you want to start a checklist. So you click on that to begin with. And what you end up with, I hope everyone isn't seeing my my Zoom key here because it's getting in my way. All right. This shows you how long you've been walking and the miles, and then it starts with a long list of birds. But as you want to enter a bird, you enter it there to, uh, as an example. Let's go to next. Okay, so you see a great egret. So you type that in there, and actually it has a couple variations, but chances are it's the great egret. You would type that in. You can put the number of birds that you saw. You can also put some comments in. There's a comment section, and I'll talk about that a little bit more in a bit. And then after you've entered that, then you're starting your list, and there's 2 great egrets. As you begin that list, you'll keep, at least for me, I still enter the next one on that line and keep going like that for a little while. But if you went from seeing 2 great egrets to adding another one, you can use a plus sign. You can click on that and it'll add another egret to it. That's a way of easily being able to go through this. At a certain point, here's another one, Pom Warbler. Type in the Pom Warbler, ibis. You see over to the side, there's that Merlin bird ID. So there's a way you can look to see more, get in more information on that. But as you're adding these details, pretty soon your list expands. And you see down at the bottom, it says 12. So I have 12 species. I was walking around my neighborhood to see these, and I had added up to 12 species. And you can click down here, instead of getting the long list of all the birds there are in the whole region, it'll start out showing you just your checklist, so that if you see more of those, you can just easily add those to it. But you're adding your species. Meanwhile, it's still clocking you. It shows I've been on it for 24 minutes. I've gone 0.68 miles. So you're walking through, doing this, adding as you go. Now you might get to something like a swallow. You saw some swallows there, and you're not sure what swallow it was. You can see there are a list of different swallows with that R sign on there. And that's where it gets to that question about confirmation, because if you thought you saw a barn swallow and put that in there, it automatically kicks in the R. It will also kick it in if you see lots of something where you don't normally see lots of that bird at one time. And then you have to document it. And if we went back to that other slide where it shows comments, when you have a rare bird that shows up, you have to put some information in there to say, here's what it was, here's some of the features of that bird, here was some of its behavior. I don't think it was this other bird because of this reason. The more you can put in there, the better, but it explains that a bit. So that if you actually did see a rare bird, you go in, you have the documentation that goes with it. So you go.
Can I
Yes.
ask a question here?
Yes.
How did you get to that comment section from your list here?
Let's see. I think if you click on any bird, I'm going to go on my live thing to see. Or if somebody else wants to chime in there, I think as soon as you put down the species and you put a number, there's a comment section that automatically shows.
Okay.
Because that's down below here.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it automatically comes up when you put you identify that bird.
Okay. Because we've done the
Yeah.
Christmas bird count, but I've never noticed that comment section come up.
Yeah, that does come up in that way.
Okay.
Mike or Ken, if you, and I
Yeah,
bet, can you chime in on that?
yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
Yeah. So anytime that you touch on any of the species, like if on this current list, if you would touch black-bellied whistling duck, it would pull up that particular screen, and then you can add comments. So you can do it when you first add it, or you can go back in later and add in comments. But anytime if you want to add a comment, you just tap on one of those species.
Okay, yeah. I think during the bird count, we're just so busy. We've never done that. Yeah,
yeah.
thank you.
And most of the time you don't need to comment. It's just when it's on something unusual.
Mhm.
And sometimes it helps to comment because if you then uh, put your list on the website, enter your list, if somebody else sees that you've seen that bird and you have some comments that might help them know where it is and what it's all about, that's helpful. Like with that lark sparrow, I think when I first saw that it had been recorded, it said, go to the golf course there at Venice, and it's on the fence between the golf course and the airport, and gave some description. So sometimes it's helpful just to do that, and you're helping other birders at the same time. Now,
Just
after you,
sorry, Bob. Can I
yeah,
interrupt for a quick? Just to be clear, when a rare bird, that R symbol comes up, it will force you to make a comment, or else you won't be able to submit your checklist.
yeah,
So, it's kind of a safeguard.
yeah, yeah. Good, thanks, Mike. So you hit stop when you're done with your whole thing, and it will show some information, how long you've been there, miles. It says choose a location, and you can, if you've done a number of walks, sometimes it's just a matter of you'll get this list when you click on there, and you can just click on that list because you've been on that walk before. Otherwise, you can enter it. You can enter it by the GPS, just the location, and it'll give you a location. Um, but that's a way of doing it. And sometimes when I do walks, um, I have to go back in later and be more specific about the location. And so you can make that change, or you can add it so that it's part of a hotspot that is a legitimate hotspot for other birders as well. It will ask you, is this a complete checklist of the birds you were able to identify? And you have to click yes or no. Yes, if you're documenting everything you've seen, they want to know that. If you end up saying no because you didn't count all the birds, you were looking for one bird and that, or a few birds, and those are the only ones you put down, you need to say that too, because what they're trying to do is build this database over time and understand everything that you see. There's more value to it, to the birding community, if you do document everything. Also, there's more value if you document the numbers you see of each species. When I first started doing it, I was pretty lazy because I was just listing the species and not talking about the numbers. But the way we help fellow birders and the way we help build the database is to say everything we saw and not be lazy about it. So there you see that I had a location that happened to be a location where when I put it on stop, and I'd seen 19 species. And then it asks at the end, uh, complete checklist, yes, and then you go in and it ends up submitting that list. Uh, If you finish that off and you didn't say submit, then it's sitting there not submitted. It's still going to be on your phone until you decide what to do with it. But in this case, again, it goes into the list. And so these were some of the places that I had been recently. So it gives some summaries of those. And it shows accepted. And had I had some rare bird that nobody really thinks I really saw, it would not have been accepted. It has to be accepted by those that are doing the reviewing. So that's a little about that application. It's again one that you have to get used to if you're out in the field, to be looking at birds and then entering them at the same time. Very often, I think our practice is to just try to remember the birds and enter it later. Sometimes you're writing them down as you go, or you're checking them off a checklist. So there are a few different ways to do it, but the mobile application is a handy one. So I wanted to show that all to you. Now, I'm going to try to get out of here. I have not done this before, so all right. So that's about where we are. I think if we go now to get back in and take a look at everybody, that